this number, that you're looking at all those reports on NUFORC, and between 2 and 8% of those are going to hold up against the Department of Defense's standard for evaluation, that's pretty remarkable. So I asked the LLM this time is to cross-reference some of the information that was released by the Department of Defense, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. That's the AARO. We covered that, I think it was in our 13th episode. We kind of discovered this along the way. I wanted to cross-reference that with the NUFORC reports to find where there are some similarities. Description of, and they do find some similarities, description of objects, shapes, and behaviors. Both sources repeatedly record Tic Tac, Cigar, egg shapes, spherical orb-like objects, triangular pyramid silhouettes. NUFORC contains many civilian reports explicitly referencing Tic Tac orbs and gimbal-like motion. The Department of Defense videos include well-known Tic Tac, gimbal, and go fast clips, and we delineated each one of those definitions. I like the go fast one, which is something that appears to hover almost at a stationary state and then zip off without any acceleration or apparent propulsion. High apparent speed, abrupt acceleration, unusual maneuvers, these things that we've seen seem to defy what we know as the laws of physics. Reports from trained observers versus civilian observers, and this is where you're going to find the biggest difference. A lot of what the government has released has been by experienced fighter pilots versus those of us in our backyards with our smartphones. Multi-sensor visual corroboration seen in both repositories. Now, in this particular case, multi-sensor visual corroboration, I believe, from the military standpoint, could be the eyewitness accounts plus the instruments they're using to detect these machines. And in the case of NUFORC, it could be multiple devices, multiple sightings. The ODNI report explicitly notes that many of the government's stronger UAP cases are corroborated across multiple sensors, radar, EQIR, weapon seeker visuals, things like that. In geographic clustering is also, we went over that. That's sort of how we stumbled across NUFORC. So how does the U.S. government evaluate valid evidence? Okay, so this is where we're going to find the biggest difference. Multi-sensor corroboration, the radar, the visual, the weapon seeker. I believe this is more of a heat sensor. Strongly increases confidence. Chain of custody and original sensor data. They take the raw sensor files, the metadata, cockpit recordings, and they evaluate and study all of it. Trained observers, military pilots. They are very, very well trained and to be able to identify anything that's out of the ordinary, plus the technical analysis finding it. So now here's where I want to caution us. I did ask it to cross-reference that which is on NUFORC versus that which might meet the DoD's valuation standards on NUFORC. I suspect it's very low, but I also think that there are different standards for either one of those two organizations. Method and reasoning. Baseline from government filtering. The ODNI reported that in their 144 case set assembled for the 2021 preliminary assessment, 80 cases were corroborated by multiple sensors. That is pretty alarming that roughly half, or what is it, 56%, curated by military sample had sensor corroboration, which means it wasn't just a visual that the pilot saw. The sensors confirmed that there was something out there. New Fork's composition is an open voluntary civil reporting database. Right, and this is where the difference is going to be. Most New Fork entries are single witness visuals, reports without attached raw sensor files. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're not going to have the same instruments that the military has, but I don't think that's necessarily relevant here. I just wanted to see how much of it was going to hold up to that sort of scrutiny. And if you look down here, not surprisingly, the strict DoD standard raw multi-sensor evidence chain of custody, it's only about 0.5% to 2% as a high. Yeah, because of the instruments they're using. Now, on the high side, what they're saying down here, it could be to 8 to 12%. And then, now, if this is true, the 8 to 12% could be corroborated using the DoD's standards of evaluation. That, to me, is really a large number. If you go ahead and think about, like, without the resources we are using to determine the validity of some of the reports we're seeing on New Fork, 8 to 12% is a very large number. All right. Yeah, all right. So now we're also going to look at different populations. We talked about that when we discovered New Fork, and we looked at the maps of how much. We talked about that when we sort of stumbled across New Fork, and we looked at the map of the absolute the stratification of that which was in the United States is so unbalanced versus the rest of the world, and it's the population. We talked about that could be because we are perceived as the world's superpower, or that's how we are being perceived. If in fact these are extraterrestrial in origin. Again, this is not confirmed. Only that there are unidentified flying objects, unidentified anomalous phenomena in the sky that we cannot define. It could produce a short spreadsheet of New Fork entries that explicitly mention Tic Tac gimbals. I don't know how interested I am. If you guys want to do this, you can. You're going to be able to get this prompt on my prompt-based channel. A reasoned central estimate. Okay, so it speculates here. A reasoned central estimate is between 2 and 8% of New Fork reports might meet the kinds of evidentiary standards that the U.S. government treats as giving a report substantial weight, with the most defensible narrow standard putting the figure near the low end. This estimate is not a measurement, but still, I think this number, that you're looking at all those reports on New Fork, and between 2 and 8% of those are going to hold up against the Department of Defense's standard for evaluation, that's pretty remarkable. All right. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for watching. That's it for now on UFOs. I anticipate returning to this in the spring. So, until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.